A near-death Bromo-DragonFLY experience, posted to shroomery.org 12 years and 8 months ago by the user Goddess of Love. First of all, I'll apologise for my bad English. Here are the trip details. The onset begins 5 hours and 0 minutes after ingestion. The total duration of the trip is approximately 48 to 52 hours. This story takes place one day on Sunday in September. It was pretty boring that day, so I decided to have fun with 3 friends of mine. I'll call them A, B and C. I made an appointment with my friends outside in a parking lot near a forest, if the trip goes wrong. 11 AM. I decided to take a blotter that I thought was LSD. Until the trip began, we rolled a joint of marijuana and smoked it. I spoke a little with my friends, and I told them that I could be crazy on acid, so that it's important to pay attention to me. We decided to take a walk in the city until the onset, to return to the parking lot afterwards. 12 AM. An hour passes, and no effect of the onset occurs. We decide to go for a bite to eat. We look for a sandwich place nearby. Afterwards, we return to the parking lot. 1 PM. 2 hours later, and nothing happens. I find it boring, and decided to take another blotter. Here was the biggest mistake of my life. My friends are a little disturbed at the idea of taking a second blotter. We're still talking and waiting until the onset begins, and it's still not there. 2 PM. Nothing happens yet. My cell phone vibrates and I receive a message from the one who sold me the LSD. The message says, "Hey dude, how are you? No problems I hope. Everything going well?" From that moment, I knew something was wrong, but it was far too late. I took the blotters, and all I had to do is wait for them to take effect. While I'm walking with my friends, I noticed that the ground began to breathe, and this is when the onset began. 2:30 PM. We went to the parking lot as planned. On the road there, the houses began to be in this painting style, as if Van Gogh had painted them. And the more I walked, I had the impression of entering into the world of the Simpsons family. There were flowers, a sky, houses, cars, they all looked like a cartoon, everything being colourful and sweet. It was really great at this point. I really enjoyed contemplating this landscape as it revealed itself to me. On the road I could see strange Egyptian motifs, and sometimes in the sky there were mathematical equations that loomed in. My vision was very sensitive by now. I could see very far distance, and I could see every detail of each object, flowers and trees around me. 3 PM. We finally arrived at the parking lot. When I entered it, everything was very mysterious. For example, between the road that separated the parking lot, it was a magical portal where only those with superior minds have the right to enter. This parking lot was my sanctuary. My power was over it, and I can control and manage it in any way I want. The onset was here. Trees strangely looked like those of the game Kirby. It was crazy. I could see every detail of the trees, yet they were very far away from me. I could also control the time and change the colours in my own way. The blue might be green, the black could be white, etc. As for my friends, their faces were filled with emotions. I could read their minds. One was nervous. The other doesn't seem to understand why I trip. I amused myself with a friend. He was really like Krusty the Clown when I touched him. All these crazy colours began coming out of his body. I really enjoyed that moment. I felt pretty well for the next 30 minutes. I seemed to be having fun. After a stick of wood drew my attention, I took it in my hands and I suddenly found myself in a Viking ship. The parking lot itself turned into a spaceship where I had the impression of seeing the water rise from the ground. I shake the stick in my hands to move it, and it was really enjoyable. 3:30 PM. My friend asks if it's going well. They all remarked that I'm quite pale, and that my lips became purple, bluish colour, but I did not pay attention. I was so good in my own little magical world. My friends really want me to go home though, so they forced me to go home because for them, I was going wrong, and I was saying some stupid shit. I said to them, "Okay, we will go home." But then I noticed that the environment became this greying sort of colour. I asked myself full of questions. What will my mother say if she sees me in this state? I was supposed to come back home in 5 p.m. On the way, I became psychotic and crazy. It had happened in my street where my house was in. Here, the objects around me in the city had a soul, and items were driven to cry. 4 p.m. So, here's the bad trip. I saw my house all dark and aggressive. My mum wanted me to open the door. The house called me. In the exterior windows I could see vicious shadows. My friends leave me at my home. I opened the door, and my mother was there in the hallway. I wanted to dodge her and get up quickly into my bedroom, but she yells, "Tell me what's happened to you." I heard her footsteps on the stairs, and my heart fluttered at full speed. I also had this strange feeling that I was quickly teleporting to every corner of my room. It was as if my body and my mind wanted to avoid my mother entirely. My mum was there, and she said, "Oh my God, look at your lips. What are you doing?" She was very upset. I was huddled in a corner of my room. My mother shouted, "I'll tell your father about this." In the living room, I heard my father, who said, "Holy fuck, he's taken drugs," etc. My father came up and told me very angrily, "Bastard, little asshole." He wanted to hit me and I started crying. I told him, "Sorry Dad, sorry, I'm so sorry I took LSD, excuse me please." He was so upset and he was yelling to my mum, "Call the ambulance quickly or he'll die." He was so nervous and said to me to come in the living room. I follow him and boom, total mindfuck. He gives me water and I immediately spit it out thinking he wants to poison me. My father tells me I was a fucking shit and totally crazy. My little brother freaked me out like hell. He was like, "Boo!" and I was bumping off the fear. There my father told me to sit down. My mother was in the kitchen and she had phoned the hospital and I had to be brought to the emergency room immediately. 4:30 p.m. What I'm going to explain now is very hard to understand. It would really live the experience to understand it. I was in the living room and there I saw my life began to scroll in front of me. I don't know how to explain it, but every step I reached that corresponded to a period of my life, from life to death. I really had a great auditory hallucination from now. For example, my father said, "Our son was so good, why has he done this?" And when I got up from the chair to go in the car, it was as if I was dead. I was physically dead, but mentally present. When I got up out the window, I really saw the car as a hearse. When I was in my hallway to go towards the car, opening the door I saw the neighbours who were sad and my mum was crying deeply. When I entered the car, my arms crossed like a dead person. I truly felt like I was in a hearse. My mother cried a lot, and I heard my parents say, "First we're going to the morgue, or the cemetery." I just couldn't speak anymore. I had this huge body load and couldn't even feel my body. It was really sad. I really thought I was dead. And then I saw the steps. I mean, when someone dies, he goes first to the morgue and the funeral, with related friends, family, etc., and then finally afterwards to the cemetery. Well, for me, it was the same. On the way, I saw through the window of the car. I saw my friends with flowers in their hands. They were only pedestrians, but as I said, the hallucinations were so strong that I thought they were my friends. Throughout the way, I saw all the friends I knew, all the members of my karate club, and I really saw the cars of those of my club who were escorting my car to my final destination. Funeral home in the street. I knew almost all of the people there. Some were crying, and I could read all their feelings on their faces. Arriving at the hospital, the emergency room, my father took me by the hand, and I heard the voice again. "Come sir, we'll take you. It won't hurt." We arrived at the counter, and there was a waiting room next. I then looked into the room, and then boom, I saw all the people I knew who looked at me with a sad and helpless feeling. Every person I'd ever known in my life. Sadness were on their faces. A medic asked me to sit down in a wheelchair to take me in a small room. If you want, the hospital was heaven, and I saw that I had died and had to access to heaven. In the room, the doctor asked me what I took. I replied that I had taken LSD, and then, black hole. A few seconds later, still in the same room, the doctor was gone and I was on a chair. A voice said, "It won't hurt." And here, I thought that they can do nothing, and they were going to disconnect me from the real world. I thought they were going to trip me for life. I told the doctor sadly, "But I don't know what death is. Is it gonna hurt?" I repeat this at least a dozen times. And he said to me, "No, it will not hurt. Let yourself go." On the door, which was at the opposite, I saw the last 10 seconds of my life. Every second appeared on the door. Everything made sense. I started with the joint. I've not found love. I could not realise my greatest dream of my life. Meet Emma Watson. Don't blame me. Then I started taking LSD until I die. If you want, you could say that this all started by me taking the joint, so I disobey my parents. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it was as if everything had a sense, and that it was all connected for me to my death. I've reviewed all the moments where it started. My first marijuana smoking at school, the meeting of my best friends, my first trip of LSD in my friend's house. I hope you understand. As the seconds pass on, heaven grants me the ability to achieve my dreams. For example, to the 7th second, I heard the voice of Emma Watson, who said, "Where is he?" And then, oh my god, I actually saw Emma Watson, as in one of my most beautiful dreams. She wore this beautiful white dress, her pretty face looking at me. I took her hand and this time she said, "It's only the beginning." And then she disappears with a demonic face. Trust me or not, this is some holy shit. I don't know, it's very strange. In fact, I'm now at a funeral. At that time, I was in my coffin. I could not move or speak. During the last 3 seconds, this is what I saw. 3rd second. I heard a crowd cheering, saying it was a beautiful boy, very sweet, why has he done this? The 2nd second. I see my love. She is sad and puts a rose on my coffin. Someone is next to her. That person holds her in his arms. Then she disappears. The very last second. I hear my father, and then my mother saying, "Please do not do that." My dad came up to me angry and said, "Yes, you are a fucking shit," and smashed me with his foot. Black hole. My mind now no longer exists, and I'm back in the real world. A doctor comes up to me and says, "So, it was you who ordered a lifetime trip. It will not hurt." I really feel that he's injecting me with what I think, a lifetime trip. But the doctor actually just comes to check my blood pressure. Boom. The trip starts to become even more intense. The whole room begins to warp and move, and the hallucinations are so strong that I fainted. I have no notion of time right now. Everything is black in my head, but I do not care, I just must be dead anyway. In fact, the feeling of death is not so bad. And here I have some auditory hallucinations that are that big that they feel like real voices. I don't know, I can hear some words such as blood pressure, heartbeat, too strong, we lose him, injection, cardiograms, constriction, seizures. And heard this fucking crazy scary voice of the mad guys from Who Framed Roger Rabbit saying, "You're fucking dead. Yes, you are." I do not know what time it is, but I found myself in a padded room. I was tripping again, but not more aggressive than before. I was lying on a bed. In the room I can see the words, "LSD Beyond Reality," moving on the wall. I stayed 2 days in hospital under advanced supervision. After this fucking huge trip, I slept for a long time with fears and trembling. When I looked on my phone, the guy who sold me LSD claims it was Bromo-DragonFLY, and said if I was okay, etc. Now, this bastard is probably in jail, because my parents bring me to the police station and the cops take my phone. In conclusion, Bromo-DragonFLY is an enormously hallucinogenic drug, very powerful and very dangerous. Doctors have told me they have failed to lose me more than 3 times. My heart stopped for a few seconds. The dose on the blotters were too high. I nearly died from Bromo. I'd light mild hallucinations for about 1 week after the trip as well. Plus I suffer from necrosis on my left feet, but now it's okay. Here is what I have had, or had. Necrosis, latent psychosis, chronic paranoia, heart problem, sometimes I had a peak beat, and split personality. So please be extremely careful with Bromo-DragonFLY. And also, thank you for listening to me, and sorry for my bad English. I tried to be as realistic as possible to describe my trip. But trust me or not, Bromo-DragonFLY is a total mindfuck. Peace out. Jesus, that was some serious gobbledygook towards the end. I really struggled understanding what it was on about, but I thought I'd persevere on because the actual trip itself was quite interesting, all the events that happened to him. It was just the epitome of a train wreck, really. And if this isn't a good warning enough to not take Bromo-DragonFLY, I don't know what is. Why you would want to do this, why any serious psychonaut would want to do this is just beyond me. There's just absolutely no need to be tripping for nearly 52 hours. It's completely ridiculous. And all the after effects like he lists, the split personality, the paranoia, the necrosis, just unbelievably, it's just ridiculous amounts of unnecessary suffering. You should not be putting yourself through this. So yeah, I just thought it was an interesting little report to share. Obviously very different from the other transcendent, positive, developmental experiences. This is just a great example of what not to do. One thing that can be taken away from this report, though, that I think is important to understand, is that if you're a parent and your child comes in on Bromo-DragonFLY or any other psychoactive substance and is having a bad time, the last thing you want to do is just abuse them and hurl like insults at them and just generally make them feel worse, because all that's going to do is exacerbate their problems and your problems, because obviously the anger-filled reaction is because they can't be asked dealing with their shit, and realistically you wouldn't have to deal with the shit as much if you were just a conscious, loving person and empathetic towards them and tried to make them feel better. Obviously he needed to go to hospital. It seemed like he took an overdose, but the last thing you want to do is belittle the guy and make his mental state even worse, because at the end of the day, I mean, your mental state can affect your physical state as well. This guy could have died from just like not just the effects of the drug, but also his just extremely negative mental state. Oh, yeah, it's great to see the other reports where people come in from tripping and the parents are just really understanding and they try to just comfort them and do the best they can. And then this is like the polar opposite, where they're just like, "What the fuck are you doing, lad? You're absolutely off your head, you!" And then they're throwing them about. It's just ridiculous. Obviously not very loving parents, really. I mean, I don't know them, I don't know their story, but all I can infer from this is these are pretty bad parents, and no wonder the kid's off doing Bromo-DragonFLY. Probably don't get a lot of love. Poor little lad or lass. Can't figure out what gender they were, or maybe they don't have a gender. So yeah, I thought this was a little interesting report, just to shake it up from the other ones. If for some reason you've decided to take Bromo-DragonFLY in the past, well, first of all, I'll say, what is actually wrong with you? But if you have, please tell me about it, because that is just like one of the craziest psychedelics, I think. The fact that the trip can last for so long. And also this guy smoked cannabis as well, which would have amplified that to like intensely. Holy shit. So yeah, really interesting one today. Sorry if you couldn't really understand what was going on. I implore you to actually try and read the report itself and try and figure it out, because I did try to sort of correct the grammar as I was reading it, but towards the end it just all sort of started melting away. So oh well, it was a good time for everybody. So yeah, hope you guys are having a good weekend, and I'll see you next time.